Hey everybody, it's Natalie Barnes here from Beyond the Reef Patterns. I'm coming to you today as a Janome maker. I've got a great little simple project for us to make. It's really going to be a sort of a quilter's travel organizer, and I'm getting ready to go on a shop hop tour with some friends of mine. And I thought, well, what would be a great thing to gift everybody for that weekend? And so I thought back on a project that I had done a while back. This was more of a notebook type of a cover, and everything was loaded from the top. The other difference is that this one was very flimsy, or is very flimsy. It's been all hand quilted, which I think you can see there, but there's nothing really rigid inside of it. Last but not least, this was a difficult one for me because if I grabbed it incorrectly and I turned it upside down, well, guess what happens? You're right, everything falls out of it. So I thought, how are we going to build a better mousetrap? And what I decided was, let's do something a little bit more simple. Let's let the fabric do the work. This is, and I'm going to read this so I get this right, Orchard Grove by Mona Luna, and these are Windham fabrics. So I thought, we're really only going to need 4 fat quarters for this project, and we're going to design it so that everything loads from the inside. I've got room for a ruler in here, some instructions and a template if I need it, a little 2.5-inch strip, and of course, I think I've got it in here. Yes, my rotating cutting mat as well, which I really like to travel with. So this is a pretty simple project. There's not a lot of sewing involved, but it's really good to have your Janome to do these types of projects. This is the 5300 QDC. You can embellish this if you want, and with this machine you can put people's initials here. Today we're just going to give you the general instructions for this very simple project, and we're going to use, instead of quilting it, which I know is going to be contrary to what a lot of you will want to do, and you can quilt it if you want. It just won't be as rigid as this, and it won't be as sturdy to protect everything that you've got in your organizer. But we're going to need the following things. We're going to need the 4 fat quarters that we talked about. 1, 2, 3, 4 different fat quarters. You're going to need some plain old cardboard. Yes, go back to the recycling bin and pull out one of those boxes, and we're going to give you some cutting instructions for that. You're going to need, because you're going to be cutting cardboard, we want to make sure that you're using your regular paper scissors and not your sewing scissors. Of course, we all know that. It's everybody else in our household that doesn't know that. You're going to need a rotary cutter, of course, because you're going to be cutting to size. And I want you to grab a chopstick. This is a chopstick that I use that's got a pointed edge. I don't ever like to use something with a metal edge where I'm poking our corners out in a square that we've made, because I'm afraid that I'm going to poke a hole right through the same corner that I sewed. So go ahead and grab yourself one of these. If you don't have one, use something else, maybe something that you use for your hair to put your hair up, but something that's not going to really poke through or hurt your fabric. You're going to want a little bit of glue. I'm using simple Elmer's glue here with a very fine tip, which I think you can see here. There's a little fine tip on that. Or you can use some Roxanne's glue basted as well. And you're going to need some pins. Last but not least, you're going to need some good thread, and of course your trusty Janome sewing machine. I just love the 5300. It's become my go-to quilt machine, and I'm really happy with it. So let's get started here. I've got some notes, so I want to make sure that I'm telling you to cut everything in the right size. We're going to make a 13 by 19 finished piece. So you can see that here. So you're going to need 14 by 20 for the outside, a 14 by 20 for the inside, a 9 by 14 for the inside pocket, 2 of those, and one 6 by 14 for the other pocket. We're simply going to take these. I'm going to take these off of the board here for a minute. You're simply going to take these, the first 2 pockets, and go ahead and press them right sides to wrong sides, and we're going to do that twice, you know, so you have a nice clean edge here, and sew along that side. Once you have 2 of those done, you're going to take your second fabric, and it's going to be a little bit smaller than your first pocket. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to turn those under. You're going to put this on top of that, and you're going to sew right down a little off center so that you have room for a little bit larger piece here and maybe some smaller rulers or things here. So you've got these two pieces done. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to sandwich this all together. So I'm going to take these down here, and we're going to talk about what goes where. This is going to be my inside fabric, and this is going to be my outside fabric. Remember, we're using cardboard on the inside of this. So if this is something that you think, as an example, you might want to wash, then you're going to want to do a quilt as you go or quilt this. In my case, I don't think that this is going to become soiled too often, and so I'm going to go ahead and use the cardboard inserts. So we're going to want to place right sides together here, but we're going to do this in a way that we are sandwiching everything together. So we're going to put this, whoops, backwards, on top of this. And we're going to pin this in place. We're going to do the same on the other side. So we're going to take this. This is going to be what you see when you open your organizer. I'm just going to put a couple of pins in this as well. Bear with me here while we do this. I think it's really going to be fun to do the shop hop, support our local quilt shops, and it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to have these as gifts for everybody that's going. So this is what this is going to look like when you open your organizer. I'm going to show you this as an example. Remember this? This is the same thing. So we had one pocket here, another, let me take all this out here, another pocket here, and then this is the pocket that's on top of the other one. So you have the ability to slide some things in here, get your instructions and everything in here, and still have two sides of other big pockets that you can use. All right, so this is where we're headed. The next thing we're going to do once we have this arranged is to put the top or the outside fabric right sides together so that we've got a nice sandwich here. I'm going to go ahead and pin this because what we're going to end up doing is sewing three sides, two long sides and a short side, leaving the last side open for, as you can guess, you're right, the cardboard. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I've got everything pinned here, and I wanted to show you up close. What I've done is I've pinned in an area that's going to be away from the sewing line that we're going to sew on those three sides. This isn't real precise piecing, and so I think it's going to be just fine if you're not pinning directly to the edge. So I'm going to get started here. I'm using about a half an inch, whoops, where did the foot pedal go? Sorry about that, just a little adjustment. I'm sewing with a half-inch seam around everything, so let's talk just a little bit about this. If you wanted to make this a different size, if you wanted to make this smaller for, may say, English paper piecing items instead of larger cutting and rotary cutting and piecing items. If you wanted to make it larger because you wanted a larger tote, something that would fit exactly the size of the bottom of your suitcase, you can do that. Just remember you want 1 inch all the way around and maybe about, half an inch to an inch in the center in case you're going to pack a lot into your organizer. And you can do your own math on that. And then you're going to be cutting your cardboard or your insert a little bit smaller than that so that you can slide that in easily. You're also going to take a stitch in the center there too, so you want to make sure that you have room for that as well. Let me get started here. I'm going to put this presser foot down and start. We're going to start sewing all the way around. This is just going to be so simple. There's a great faceplate on this machine that has so many different dimensions on it that it makes it so easy. Don't look away like that. Okay, on this machine, if you want, you can go ahead and use the little scissor icon here and it will cut your thread. In this case, I'm just going to open this up. And if I were really smart, I would use my scissors here to trim this. We're going to take out all of our pins. I created a fun little pin cushion here. I used one of those egg coddles and then just created a giant circle and stuffed it with the walnut shells that you get from the pet store. I'm told that the walnut shells are for the bottom of lizards and other reptiles, that they like those in the bottom of their cages, but for me, I just like it for the pin cushions. So we've sewn all the way around here, and we're going to trim up those corners with the proper scissors. So we're going to lop those corners off. And we'll be able to turn this right sides out and get the cardboard in it. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Oh, well, we'll just turn this inside out. Here, right here now. Ooh, stuck myself with the pin. This is where your chopstick is going to come in handy. You're going to go ahead and turn these right side out, and you're going to want to use something to poke those corners out so that they're nice and crisp. Let me get the rest of this done here. This is sewing in real time. I'm going to turn the other one around here too. And I'm going to show you a common mistake and how to fix it as well. Because it seems like the first time I did this, I was a little panicked. I thought I had done everything backwards, and I don't want you to feel that way at all. So here we go. We're getting our nice crisp corner. I think you can see that there. A nice crisp corner. And I got everything done here. And I took a look at it and I thought, uh-oh, I made a mistake. What have I done? I didn't sandwich this correctly. But that is not the case. I just didn't turn it correctly. So all you have to do, I know, I was in panic mode. All you have to do is bring everything to the same side, and there you have it. So I think you can see this is very simple. It's just a rectangle here. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this cardboard slipped into one side. So I'm going to slip it all the way into the back. If this seems a little bit too large, you can always trim this down so that you have just the right amount of space in this package that you've made. I'll be right back. My cardboard needs a little trim. We've got our cardboard and we've got our fabric sleeve here. We've left one side open, and so I'm just going to drop this cardboard down into this sleeve, which you can see here. You can also tell where I got my cardboard. My apologies for any inadvertent advertising. Whatever you do, don't use your Janome sewing machine box. You know, I always tell you, keep those boxes if you can, put them someplace, and keep all the packing materials in case you ever need to send your machine in for any service or anything. You know that you are sending it the same way that Janome sent it to you. So I think you can see we're coming to the end here, and this is really nice and crisp. So we've got some protection for the items that we're going to put in here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew right down the center here, and then we'll put the second piece of cardboard in. Once we do that, all we have to do is turn this side under around the cardboard, which is where the glue comes in. We're going to glue it together and then whip stitch it by hand, and we'll have a lovely present for our travel partners. Hang on, we'll be right back. So this is already stuck in there, so it's done. It's not coming out. I'm going to put the other one in. I'm going to slide it in, and then we'll talk about closing up that edge. And I've got the second piece of cardboard in here, which I think you can see. And I want to leave a little extra space here so that when we fold this over, if there's a lot in there, you can see that we have some extra room for that depth, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this carefully here, and I'm going to take a little bit of our glue and just run it along the edge of this right here so that I can tuck this inside side over and have it hold while I then put the other side over and stitch it by hand. So what I'm going to do is grab my trusty glue here, and I'm just going to run it along the edge right here. This is just going to hold. Can you see that? So when I flip this over, it's just going to hold it in place long enough for me to stitch that down. So I'm going to go ahead then and fold this in on top of that. Go ahead and fold it in. Just let it dry a little bit while we hold everything in place there. Sorry, I cut off my head. The next step, of course, will be to, you just want to see this and not me anyway, fold this one back against it and then whip stitch that in place. So I think that's about it. Ultimately, you're going to fill it with goodies. You've got a nice little travel organizer here. It was easy peasy. We made the whole thing right here except for all of the actual cutting. So you can see how simple of a project this is. I hope you've enjoyed this, whether you're making something that is unquilted or whether you want to make the quilted version. Enjoy your project, enjoy the weekend with your friends traveling, and enjoy your Janome. Thanks so much for stopping by. From my house to yours.